had the full range from no other card could cause this player to win this game to this card is not doing anything at all. I think it also gets a lot worse in the post-board games when both players have access to Erebos. The lifelink in the mirror match does matter because life is a pretty significant resource. You're thought seizing and casting Underworld connections. Your opponent's casting Grave Merchants, so it's not a total freebie. So shutting off the life gain makes the whip a lot worse. But it still has its moments of being very good in the mirror match.
Yeah, and I think I would tend to agree with that. It can be very good. So like lifelink, oftentimes when a player's ahead, lifelink is a way that they can really seal out the game. But like you said, it's not always true that a lot of great creatures end up in the graveyard. So it's almost that you're paying for the first ability more than the second on the card.
Yeah.
All right, and it looks like we are about to be underway. Owen Turtenwald on the play versus Matthew Hoey. This is the top 8 of our standard open here in Columbus. Remember, you'll have the Invitational taking place later on today and ending with the Legacy Open. And we're going to start this game on a Thoughtseize from Owen. Let's surveys what he's working against. Matthew Hoey has 2 lands, 2 Nightveil Specters, a Lifebane Zombie, a Hero's Downfall, and a Thoughtseize of his own. A
pretty solid hand, though one that is now quite susceptible to Owen just having Underworld connections and removal spells if Owen takes the Thoughtseize here.
Yeah, and this is why, one of the many reasons why Thoughtseize is such a great card. Owen basically able to sculpt his game plan around this. Hoey's biggest threat appears to be Nightveil Specter. Once again, if Owen has a card like Underworld Connections, he's now taken Hoey's only answer.
Yeah. This is also now a clear path for Owen to land Pack Rat uncontested. Again, he would have to cross his fingers and hope to avoid Bile Blight for a couple turns, but...
Turn 1 Godless Shrine from Matthew Hoey. Remember, his third land was drawn there, but it was not... It was a Mutavault, so actually he's not able right now to play a turn 3 Nightveil Specter.
So next turn's going to be the real test here. If Owen has an Underworld Connections, then he's a huge favorite.
Yeah, and it looks like he has just that. Owen's going to go ahead and put Underworld Connections on one of his swamps, and it's going to stick. And once that's in play, there's, at least in the main deck, there's no coming back from that as far as getting rid of it, is there?
It's just there. Matt's going to have to play against this for the rest of the game.
All right, and the card drawing will start. Owen goes down to 17. Matthew did draw the swamp on turn 3, so he was able to make Nightveil Specter. We'll see how much damage it does, though. A Bioblight sitting in Owen's hand at the ready.
He knows that Hoey has the other Nightveil in hand, so Owen might try to trap him here. Induce him to play that second Nightveil Specter.
He'll go ahead and play Lifebane Zombie. Sees a hand that Hoey's picked up a pair of single Grey Merchant to go with that Hero's Downfall. And he has the 4th land in Mutavault right now.
And what's great about this play from Owen is Hoey knows that Owen only has the 1 Bile Blight. So if they were playing in the Swiss rounds and there was some uncertainty, Matt would respect the possibility of there being quite a few Bile Blights in the list potentially. But post-board, he knows there's only the 1, and the upside of getting the second Nightveil in play is really high when you're facing down an Underworld connection, so you need to match up card advantage-wise.
So if you're Hoey, are you on a race to find Underworld connections, or are you just targeting on Owen's life total right now?
Probably on the life total with Grey Merchant in hand. If he finds the connections, I'm sure he's thrilled, but he does have the tools to race at least.
Yeah, looks like his draw for the turn may have been Desecration Demon. If he wants to race, that'll certainly go a long way. Okay, he's just going to pass back the turn, so maybe that was not. We'll see where he goes from here. Hoey's still respecting that 1 of Bile Blight right now.
I think that if Hoey had found something anemic off of the Nightveil Specter, let's say it was, just a land or something like that, he might have just deployed the second Nightveil Specter. Now that he has something productive to do with his mana, which is cast this ultimate price, he doesn't have to commit the second Nightveil to the board.
All right, well, Owen's own ultimate price will take down his Lifebane Zombie, so swing connects for 0 damage. Owen had already drawn an extra card. So right now, he seems comfortable to lose resources, but remember, he's down to 14 at the moment. And we'll see Desecration Demon from Owen, and a second Ultimate Price fires right out of Hoey's hand, keeping the board clean. Update on our top 8, our 1v8 matchup. Our Red Devotion player, Alec Myers, the 1 seed, down a game right now to Mono Black, being piloted by Jeremy Sparkman.
And that's going to be rough because I think post-board things get even better for the black deck. Just Doom Blades are so effective against Red Devotion.
Right, and Hoey doing a great job of keeping the pressure on here. Nightveil Specter found a land from Owen. That land helped Hoey cast Grey Merchant from his hand, and Owen is down to 7 right now.
Yeah, and again, Hoey just doing a really good job, still respecting the possibility of one copy of Bioplay. He's done things on both turns 4 and 5 that maybe have lower upside than deploying the second Night Veil and really starting to go to town, but don't expose him to the one Bioplay.
And I'll be curious to see how much more life Owen can afford to pay here. He does have a Bioblight and a Hero's Downfall now, so he can keep the board clear, but he's down to 7 life, 6 if he taps Underworld Connections. He's got to fear things like the Mutavault on Matthew Hoey's side, and the real possibility that Hoey has another Gray Merchant.
Yeah, I think that Owen probably just needs to cast a couple removal spells this turn, keep his head above water. He has a Gray Merchant of his own, so even if he takes a Mutavault shot next turn and activates the connections and falls to 4, you can still untap and get to a healthier life total and really start to continue to leverage that connections.
It looks like he's going to do just that. Owen opts not to play Gray Merchant, passes the turn with all of his mana up. And interestingly enough, he didn't tap Underworld Connections main phase this time.
I think he wants all of his mana at the ready for the maximum ability to bluff things. He is still going to, I believe, connections and just cast a couple removal spells. But
yeah, that's it. Hoey swings. Owen does draw his extra card. Starts out with Bioblade on Night Veil Spectre. And he had the option to downfall the Gray Merchant, chose not to do it. That goes to 4. Matthew's going to try to make a lethal Gray Merchant. Does not connect. Owen Hero's Downfalls in response to the trigger, so he's only drained for 2, but he is on his last 2 life here.
And that was another pretty excellent play there from Owen. In the event that he Hero's Downfalls the Gray Merchant in combat, Hoey gets to deploy Pack Rat, activate it, and Owen can't catch up. Since Hoey sensed weakness, he spent his turn Gray Merchanting instead, and now Owen's back in it. If he had just cast the Hero's Downfall inside of combat, he would be facing down Pack Rat, and I don't even think this Gray Merchant would be able to catch him up.
Yeah, well, Owen does play a Gray Merchant of his own. That'll bring him up to 6 thanks to the Devotion off Underworld Connections. Not out of the woods yet, but you're right, able to dodge the Pack Rat there. So now he just wants to keep this Underworld Connections game going if at all possible. We'll see what Hoey can do here. It does not look like he has another Gray Merchant or way to drain at the moment. Update from the other side of the bracket, Festus Resendez, mono red aggro, having much more success than its Devotion counterpart. He's up a game on David Bauer.
And this Pack Rat is really bad news for Owen. Hoey knows there's no Bioblade hanging out there. Owen's already cast his 1 main deck copy, so he is free to go to work.
So if, in the absence of Bioblight, is it fair to say Owen's best answer to this Pack Rat is to draw his own Pack Rat as soon as possible?
His own Pack Rat or multiple Gray Merchants.
We see Devour Flesh drawn by Owen. He's down to 4 after taking that extra card. His hand has a number of control cards, Devour Flesh and other connections of Thoughtseize, but none of these will deal with the situation at hand. And Hoey threatening to make another Pack Rat on end step, swing with 2 rats, a Mutavault, a Gray Merchant. 4 damage, it does not look like it's far off.
And this is one of those spots where the decks in the elimination rounds being public is just bad news for Owen. I think at the end of the day, Hoey would still run the risk here and try to win the game with Pack Rat because he doesn't have a great path otherwise, but the certainty that there's no more Bioblades in Owen's list here tips the scales.
Absolutely. Owen passes the turn. End step, Hoey will start making rats, this time starting out by discarding a Lifebane Zombie. In response, Owen's going to Devour Flesh. See if he can... What he's going to nab. Could be a Gray Merchant, could be a Mutavault, could be one of the Pack Rats.
I would imagine that Hoey's going to lose his Gray Merchant here. Feels like the least significant of the cards in play.
Well, it's the only card without creature-type rat, so... When you're pack ratting, I feel like you want to be preserving that as much as possible.
Also, it's not like the Gray Merchant's in a position to attack. Held off by the opposing Gray Merchant, at least for the time being.
Yeah, we'll see which one Hoey sacrifices. It does mean, if he, I mean, we'll see if he remembers the number of Bioblights in Owen's deck. I imagine he knows there's no more to play around, which would make this a good amount safer.
I think that's the first thing that Hoey would try to memorize. Yeah. Looking at the deck list in the mirror match, how many copies of Bioblade?
And Owen's list pretty straightforward. Remember, Owen's list is 8 4-ofs and 2 1-ofs.
And that's quite a bit of diversification for Owen, who usually plays 8 4-ofs and 1 2-of.
Yeah, he has gone for 1 Bioblade, 1 ultimate price, as opposed to 2. And as predicted, Hoey sacrifices the Gray Merchant. He goes up to 27. Now he will get that token off Pack Rat. And he'll go to work. Now it looks like, because Hoey can threaten to make these rats at least 4/4s, possibly 5/5s if he draws a land this turn. And he may be able to push Lethal in. And he's drawn a Whip of Erebos for the turn. A card which, like we said, life gain was the normal mode on it. That doesn't matter too much, but what does matter is that Hoey has a Gray Merchant of Asphodel in his yard with the ability to whip it back. It seems likely that he'll be able to press enough damage to get this.
Yeah, the risk here is, I suppose, if Owen has multiple removal spells and then a Gray Merchant of his own, this might be a worse line than just making rats this turn, but the likelihood of all that coming together and the amount of time that Owen has is very low.
Yeah, Matt, Hoey just plays the whip, passes the turn. Owen drawing twice for the turn, hits Desecration Demon. No help there. I'm not sure he's going to be able to deal with this Gray Merchant that's coming back.
Yeah, it seems unlikely. I mean, and even if he does have a Gray Merchant of his own, the rats that Matt has in play are eventually going to finish Owen off here.
Yeah, Thoughtseize, Devour Flesh, Underworld Connections. These are the cards in play for Owen. Strong ones, but none of them dealing with this axis that Hoey's hitting him on. And we'll see Desecration Demon is the play from Owen.
And here comes the activation here.
And that's Gray Merchant. Owen will go ahead and Devour Flesh. Hoey making sure that he sacrifices, I suppose, I don't even know if it matters which one he sacrifices. Owen's probably targeting himself with the Devour Flesh, would be my guess then. And yeah, he's targeting himself. In response to that, Hoey's going to go ahead and kill the Desecration Demon with Hero's Downfall so that Owen can't gain 6. He'll sack his own Gray Merchant. That puts Owen up to 7. Gray Merchant from Hoey drains for 5. Owen's down to 2. And just waiting to see Hoey turn the creature sideways. And that'll do it, putting us into game 2.
It's one of the most compelling things about watching Owen play is he just will never concede. I mean, he makes his opponent take the last game action to finish it off.
Right. It's like, well, perhaps he will forget to attack. All right, I will go to 2. And he makes him turn the card sideways.
You have to beat the man to beat the man. No concessions.
All right, Matthew Hoey up a game. For those of you joining us, we're watching the Standard Top 8 here in Columbus, Ohio. Remember, this is our Sunday full of Top 8s, starting with Standard, then moving on to the Invitational during the afternoon. But what that means, if it's all Top 8s during Sunday, it means we're going to be giving away a lot of trivia today.
Yeah, for those of you tuning in for the first time, during the elimination rounds of anything we do, whether it's an open or an invitational, we give away 3 free months of Star City Games Premium, then 6, and then 12 with different trivia questions at the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then finals. The way that this works is Matthias over here is going to ask you a question. You will tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random to receive 3 free months because we're in the quarterfinals of Star City Games Premium. It is about accuracy, not speed, so do not worry about submitting first. Just submit the correct answer. And please keep in mind that this trivia contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com. Twitch is in no way affiliated with this giveaway.
All right, so we are watching currently a mono black mirror between Matthew Hoey and Owen Turtenwald. As we said, the decks have a lot of overlap, but at least one way they don't have overlap. This is a one-of, so we're looking for the name of a card. The trivia question is a legendary artifact that is in Matthew Hoey's main deck. It's one of the few cards he's playing that Owen is not playing. Made an appearance in game 1. If you know the name of that card, tweet it with a hashtag SCG Premium as you see on the bottom of your screen. At the end of all of our top 8 matches, one of the correct responses will be randomly chosen to receive 3 months of Star City Games Premium.
And make sure that you're following us on Twitter so we can get that prize over to you.
All right, so going into the match, you'd said early that post-board, this is going to get better for Hoey. And when he's up a game, you have to think that's a pretty good spot for him to be on.
Yeah, this is tough. The white cards in his sideboard, very well suited for this matchup. 3 copies of Blood Baron and Viscopa cause Owen to have to jump through all sort of hoops throughout the game. If it ever sticks in a position where it's protected from Devour Flesh, rather, Owen is going to be hard-pressed to beat it. There's also a Deicide. The post-board game's largely defined by Underworld Connections and Erebos God of the Dead, so a Deicide has some high upside. He has an Erebos God of the Dead of his own that he can bring in, and 3 copies of Duress. He'll probably want the ultimate price as well, maybe another Devour Flesh. So a lot of good action for Hoey to bring in here. On the other side, you see Owen here, a Pithing Needle, a Bioblight, 2 Dark Betrayals, 4 Doomblades, 2 Erebos, 4 Duress, 1 Read the Bones. I imagine that the 2 copies of Dark Betrayal, the 4 additional discard spells, or maybe not up to 4, but some number of them, the Duresses will be coming in. 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, and the Read the Bones.
So a 9-card sideboard, at least for Owen. One of the things that I think you talked about, you mentioned it with Deicide, or Deicide. It seems like Hoey, because of his white splash, he's able to actually interact with some of the cards that Owen can't. Like you said, he can actually get rid of a resolved of Erebos or a resolved Underworld Connections. Owen's going to have to Duress or Thoughtseize these away, but then again, he is playing an additional Duress to that end.
It's not a bad strategy, the one that Owen's taking, because what happens in the Black Mirror match often is both players attack each other's hands, they use removal spells on one another, and then it's whoever top decks the first card of significance. So it's hard to be too reactive in that world. I understand the Deicide looks like it could be very good. There's going to be some games where it's either stranded in the hand or just taken by a Duress effect. So even though these cards seem like they are significant, and Blood Baron certainly is, a lot of times it doesn't really matter what cards you're drawing in the mirror match. Both players exhaust each other's resources. If someone has a card drawer going, that's a large edge. And often it's just who draws the first high impact card once both players have their initial wave of resources exhausted.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot as early as turn 4. Sometimes the players are down to 1-0 cards on both sides of the match. So that, and then it's just, one player will try to tap deck something like an Underworld Connections, like an Erebos, and then can run away with the game.
It's an interesting element to the game. How good is Desecration Demon in the mirror match? Not very good. Dies to most removal spells, but it still has windows of being plenty good because both players run out of stuff, and if you draw a Desecration Demon, it kills your opponent very quickly.
Yeah, one thing I like about Desecration Demon in the mirror match is that what oftentimes happens is that one player will be the first player to get something like Underworld Connections, and that really forces the other player to go aggressive. If he taps the Underworld Connections enough, if your opponent gets to draw enough extra cards, he wins the game. And sometimes it can play out. For example, we saw that first game. Owen had the connections, so it forced Hoey to basically go aggro there. And Hoey was actually able to do it. He got Owen down to 0. I think Desecration Demon probably the best card at going aggro. It's one of the better cards in mono black that you can play from behind with.
Correct. It's not good in every game, but there's some games it catches you up when other cards would not be able to do that.
Yeah, to be fair, I'd still rather be the guy with the Underworld Connections as opposed to the one with the Desecration Demon. But in the event that you can't have the connections, Demon does a fine job.
Yeah. And the mirror match, it's not like there's a lot of cards that do help you catch you up when you're losing.
Yeah, sometimes once they draw 3-4 extra cards on you, if you haven't killed them yet, it can be pretty hopeless.
Yeah.
We are on game 2 here. Owen on the play. Currently, they're deciding on mulligans.
Very impressive that first game, Matthew able to win in spite of Owen's turn 1 Thoughtseize into a quick Underworld Connections, which Hoey never matched.
And here's where we see that post-board mutually assured hand destruction. All right, Owen's going to start it with a Thoughtseize. And actually, all game 1 cards for Hoey right now. We do see a curve of Packrat, Nightveil Spectre, Underworld Connections, and then topping off at both Blood Baron and Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
Not clear how much Owen wants to value that Blood Baron in this hand. Hoey is 3 mana away and missing white mana. That said, it's still the most threatening card that Matt brings to the table post-board. So Owen maybe will use a Thoughtseize on this card even now, just because the long-term threat of it is so huge.
Yeah, and I think in a world where Hoey didn't have enough other threats, Owen would be taking it. He does go for the Underworld Connections right now. And we'll see what Owen's working with. More hand destruction going back the other way. A top deck Duress from Hoey. Owen significantly lighter on threats here.
And what's really bad about this, if you're an Owen fan here, is that Duress is taking the Bioblight. That's probably the card that prevented Owen from taking the Pack Rat with the Thoughtseize out of the hand. Now he's at risk of maybe losing this game straight away to Pack Rat.
Yeah, I think he may have drawn a second kill spell for that Pack Rat. We'll see whether or not he did. Yeah, plays another Swamp, not a Mutavault. I think there's another Bioblight waiting there. Hoey gonna slam the Pack Rat, and we'll see what Owen does here.
And this is really well set up here for Owen to run the trap with Bioblight now, because I would be stunned if Matthew plays around the second Bioblight.
Yeah, well, Hoey doesn't have the third land yet. We see right now Lifebane Zombie taking care of that Blood Baron, so Owen not having to use the Thoughtseize. He's going to go ahead and pass back, and yeah, he is baiting Hoey into making more rats. Some updates from across the board. We have 2 of our matches finished. Festus Resendez, a 2-0 winner over David Bauer. Festus playing mono red aggro. He moves on to the semifinals where he'll face the winner of this match. On the other side of the bracket, Joshua Rabbits, 2-0, playing black green devotion, defeats Justin Smith 2-1. So that's your mono black aggro deck now out of contention.
I'm interested. I'll talk to Josh. I would not be surprised if Golgari Charm played a huge role in at least one of those games.
All right, and Hoey, not to be baited, he goes ahead and makes Nightveil Spectre instead of a different rat. Owen swings, and now we'll see, we're kind of back in that similar situation where Owen's the one with the connections, and Hoey dealing damage and gets an unchecked Nightveil Spectre.
Yep.
It's gonna grab a Hero's Downfall.
And when he hits spells like this, it just prevents him from getting tracked by the Bile-Blight because he has things to do with his mana that are as productive as making a pack rat. And this Nightveil Spectre probably won't live very long, and so Hoey has an incentive to try to extract as much value out of it as possible.
Yeah, Owen down to 14, Hoey at 15. We do see no 4th land for Hoey. That's pretty fortunate here for Owen, as there is a Erebos, God of the Dead, hanging out in Hoey's hand. He was unable to cast it so far. We'll see now whether or not Owen wants to try to go for a kill spell, whether or not he wants to continue to develop his board instead. Hero's Downfall already looking like it's going to target that Lifebane Zombie.
I would assume so. Again, I just don't think... I think as long as Matt can do things with his mana other than making pack rats that are reasonable, he's going to go ahead and do that. Now, if he gets an opportunity to Duress or Thoughtseize Owen and the coast is clear, then he might pivot and start just making rats. But for the time being, I don't think that's going to be how Matt plays it.
Well, an interesting shift. Owen swings with Lifebane Zombie, and Matthew, rather than playing Hero's Downfall, just takes 3 here. Do you think that means he's on the pack rat play, or is he willing to pay 3 life to be flexible?
I think it's the latter, but it could be the former.
All right, and Owen, with that out of the sideboard, one of Read the Bones, going to draw 2. Pretty good counter advantage here, though. If I'm Owen, I'm a little concerned about giving away too many more of my life points. We already saw that how that can come back to get him.
And now we're going to see, was Matt paying 3 life for flexibility, or is he just making a rat here?
I would think Owen has a kill spell. Owen did not tap Underworld Connections to try to find a Thoughtseize style card, and I would think if he had no kill spells in his hand, I would have thought Owen would make that play. The main phase tap to try to get disruption.
Well, if most of his removal is, how much of his removal here is 2 mana here is part of the question. Because if he has more looks at it from Read the Bones, maybe it's still better.
Yeah, and it does have the 1 mana kill spell. That's Dark Betrayal. It's going to go ahead and take care of the Nightveil Spectre. But Hoey is pack ratting now.
And this is great for Owen here. As we know, he's found the 2nd copy of Bile-Blight. And Hoey's not going to be able to outpace it.
How many daggers would be if Hoey were to drop a Mutavault right now?
It would be really bad, potentially.
That would get him. But Hoey doesn't. He has a Godless Shrine this turn.
That's the thing about the Black Devotion Mirror is you can have all the setup you want, but there's so much attrition going on that sometimes things just sort of change on the fly.
Yeah, you can slow roll a Bile-Blight, but if you roll it too slowly, then you run some risks. Hoey not going to make any more rats, though. He's going to shock himself for Godless Shrine and make Erebos, God of the Dead. Owen now stuck on his final life points. He taps to go down to 7. No going up from here on out.
That's the really significant thing here is that you see Owen with the Grey Merchant in his hand. That Grey Merchant would have done a great job of allowing him to race and allow him to start re-upping with this Underworld Connections. Now that line is shut off.
Yeah, I feel like when you have Underworld Connections and there's not an Erebos on the other side of the table, you can just really turtle up into full control mode. Kill everything, eventually gain life. This is going to force Owen to be somewhat aggressive. Not to mention the fact that Hoey has on the board a real chance of activating this guy.
Yeah. Although the sequence, I'm sure if Hoey knew that Owen was going to hit the Nightveil with the Dark Betrayal here, I suspect he would have just played the Hero's Downfall instead. That was a pretty big loss of resources. He's now taking a 2nd hit from this Lifebane Zombie.
Yeah, there's the ability to race. He could have taken away Owen's ability to race here, I would think. And perhaps there's not a Bioblade. Owen's going to go ahead and devour Flesh Hoey here. Maybe we spoke too soon. I still think he does have one. We'll have to see. Hoey sacrifices the rat token, so he goes back up to 9. 3 more mana, another Lifebane Zombie sees Gray Merchant in the hand of Hoey. See if he draws enough to cast it. He does not. He does hit a Hero's Downfall, however.
And now all of Hoey's operations, they're his whole turn. Drawing out a card with Erebos, he has no follow-up play right now unless he finds a land. Activating Pack Rat, playing Hero's Downfall. And it seems like Owen has the resources to beat each one of those plays individually.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that Hoey not only does it take his whole turn to draw a card, but this loss of 2 life is really non-trivial.
Yeah.
Hoey draws a card and actually just immediately scoops them for game 3. All right, so we're going to go on to game 3. Owen taking game 2. Other updates on the bracket. Number 1 seed Alec Myers falls in 3 games to Jeremy Sparkman. So we are going to have a mono black in the other semifinal. That is Sparkman playing black versus Joshua Ravitz playing black splash green.
So we only have one person left. Our hopes of a non-black champion.
There will be 12 Gray Merchants in the semifinals. But as we said before, you really liked, and I agree that Festus Resendez, this has got to be a great top 8 for him. He's playing mono red aggro. I mean, and now he knows it's just mono black matchups from here on out.
It's still, it's still harrowing to have to beat the matchup several times in a row. And I would not want to play against either one of these players in the semifinals, which is what he's waiting for. But the matchup on paper is good for him. I prefer playing against mono black aggro to many other decks in the format. They can still beat you. Their best draws are difficult to beat, and Desecration Demon and Gray Merchant, they're problematic cards in some games, but you can just get out in front of them and kill them. They're hands that are just some removal spells and maybe a Lifebane Zombie or a Nightveil Spectre. Those are not good enough to keep up. And they have a lot of cards like Thoughtseize and Underworld Connections that are very inefficient in the matchup.
Yeah, so it's a good matchup for mono red, but I mean, it's not that good. I mean, there's a reason there's 5 mono black decks in the top 8.
Right, it's not like when my opponent goes turn 1 Swamp Thoughtseize, I'm like, I can't possibly lose or whatever.
You're fist pumping on the inside. Oh yeah.
But the matchup is over 50%. It's comfortably favorable.
Yeah, probably the scariest build of it, I think, and you've been alluding to this a lot, is the Joshua Ravitz build. He's the one who has Golgari Charms in his board. That card wants a pretty big house against mono red aggro. I would think. Neither of these players playing a Golgari Charm build, so
it depends on the exact list. The type of list that I play with Foundry Street Denizen, Golgari Charm is very good. The list that we're seeing here is going up a little bit higher in the curve. You see Fanatic of Bogus and Boros Reckoner, more of a devotion beatdown flavor to it. That's a lot more robust against Golgari Charm. I mean, there's still Fire Trigger Satyr and Firefist Striker. There's some one-toughness creatures, but it's not nearly as good.
Yeah, it's not on the level of these mono red Sly style decks that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
That's it. Was interesting. I know yesterday, Cedric and I got to see Tom Ross, he's in our top 8, playing mono red Sly. You certainly no stranger to an all mountains mana base, but is that deck, comparing that to a deck like mono red aggro, is this a better version of mono red aggro, a different version? They're so similar but so different. I'm curious how they weigh against each other.
I would imagine that Tom's deck mulligans a little bit more and struggles to play against instants a little bit more because he's doing a lot of, pump my creature, try to put Dragon's Mantle, Titan Strength type of stuff. But he's far more explosive and probably more robust against blockers. So those are the trade-offs. But 17, a deck with that few lands, you are going to mulligan more hands.
So having tricks like that, I guess the short version you might say is better against creatures, maybe a little worse against removal spells.
Yeah, Tom's list, I believe, is much better against cards like Sylvan Caryatid.
Yeah, certainly has no problem pushing through that. He plays 21 drops in his deck.
So that's the big upside you get. And since most of the decks in the format, their way of beating you is trying to block, that's not an unreasonable angle to take.
Have you had a chance to play his deck much? I know that you piloted a few mono red builds.
I did dabble with that for a while, but it's just kind of not my style. I respect the deck's good, but I do not feel comfortable having 17 lands and however many, 20 giant growths or whatever. It's not. I mean, I build some pretty extreme decks, but Tom's on a whole different planet,
Titan Strength is no Lava Spike.
Well, I actually did play Titan Strength as my pump spell of choice when Domestication was very popular, but removed it when that was no longer the case.
All right. That actually seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, if you can break a Domestication with Titan Strength.
The problem that I had with Titan Strength is one of the cards you're trying to regularly push through is Courser of Crufix, and you have a lot of 1 toughness creatures. So it's your guy does not survive in that world. Whereas if it's Rumble Belt Maka, your creature survives. So I like the Maka a little bit better.
Swinging a Fire Drinker Satyr into a Courser of Crufix, yeah, Titan Strength, not really what you'd want to be doing.
Correct.
There.
So it just depends on what card you're trying to beat.
All right, going on to game 3, we have Hoey versus Turtenwald. We did say going into it that we liked Hoey's matchup post-board, but I think we really showed through game 2 there. We said, yeah, Hoey has better cards like Blood Baron and Viscopa post-board, but that's really not what this match is about. It's still about who can get that Underworld connections after we're done tearing apart each other's hands.
It's really weird to me because it feels like almost no matter what cosmetic changes you make to the list, it's hard for your matchup to be much better than slightly above 50% in the mirror because your hand gets attacked so much. Almost doesn't matter what cards are in your deck.
I mean, most cards get taken by Thoughtseize regardless of what their text is.
Right.
We did actually see some incidental damage there. Hoey losing his Blood Baron to a Lifebane Zombie, a card which is normally pretty dead in the mirror.
Yeah.
Looks like we're underway for game 3 here. Hoey will be on the play. Owen was on the play the first 2 games. It looks like he has lands and spells, and the lands are temples, so you have to think he's keeping. I'm not sure how great the spells are in this matchup, however.
It's none of the big impact stuff. I mean, it's removal spells and some 5-drops. But the temples feel like that's a good enough incentive to keep the hand.
The danger is that he's got no interaction right now with Underworld connections if Owen were to just drop one.
Yeah. But he's got a lot of looks at it, The temples can help him find a Duress or a Thoughtseize or a Deicide, so.
All right, so Temple for Hoey. Owen plays a Swamp Node Hand Disruption spell. Either doesn't have one or he's choosing to use it on turn 2 to get better value. And Hoey Hoey very comfortable just developing a mana base here. He goes with Godless Shrine.
With his hand this flush with 5 mana spells, I'm sure he is.
All right, we see Owen with a Pack Rat in hand here. Probably not too high of expectations for how good this rat's going to be. He's going to drop it. Imagine that we'll just see Hoey devour flesh it while he has the chance.
Yeah, I would not get fancy here if I was Hoey.
If he lets Owen untap and start making more rats, this rat could be a problem. So we see a Temple, scries the bottom, and yeah, he will devour away the Pack Rat. Owen's at 21, and the board remains clear. Looks like Hoey's added another 5-drop to his hand. This is... We'll actually get to see it once again. Owen hitting that Blood Baron with Lifebane Zombie.
These Lifebane Zombies have gotten much better post-board, that's for sure. This is...
And we were saying, Blood Baron's going to break the mirror. Oh, man. No. Hoey's hand, 2 Gray Merchants, a land, and a Hero's Downfall.
I'm sure that Hoey would not want to draw Blood Baron in any of his opening hands. And I think he wants to draw them. He wants to draw them at some point.
I usually prefer to draw my 5-drops on turn 5 as well.
Correct. It's just good strategy.
We'll see what Owen's working with now. It's a Thoughtseize back from Hoey. Owen has a 4th land, a Dark Betrayal, a Ultimate Price, a Devour Flesh, and a Read the Bones. So a multitude of kill spells and a Read the Bones. This actually seems like a hand which matches up pretty well for Hoey. Gray Merchant's pretty good against removal.
It's not shabby. These Gray Merchants are going to be pretty anemic, unfortunately, for Hoey because he has nothing else going on. But his hand is really poorly suited to beat something like Desecration Demon, so.
Yeah, huge draw for Hoey, though. We saw him use the Hero's Downfall to take care of Lifebane Zombie. It wasn't going to be a stalemate, but off the top, Hoey, as often as the case in this matchup, first player to draw Underworld connections. We'll see if Owen can keep pace.
This is the type of thing that really punishes Owen for his hand being all removal spells.
Yeah, Owen's going to Thoughtseize. We see Merchant, Ultimate Price. Owen will probably take a Gray Merchant. But Hoey's still at a really comfortable life total. one of the ways Owen can fight back is by shoving damage as fast as possible. If he does, he can take away Hoey's ability to just draw cards at will.
That's the angle that we saw Hoey take game one. I mean, Owen opened on Thoughtseize Underworld Connections, the best start basically in the mirror match. But Hoey with his Gray Merchants and Night Veil Specters was able to race that.
Yeah, and I think to that effect, Owen actually took the ultimate price and left Hoey with both Gray Merchants, kind of thinking, hey, if Hoey stumbles on lands, maybe Owen can seize this opportunity to shove in more damage. But Owen doesn't have an offensive right now.
Yeah.
Look at this. Hoey drew Night Veil Specter off that Underworld Connections. He opted not to play it so that he could hold up this Bile Blight.
And if Owen needs to race, then the opposite is also true. Hoey needs to try to defend himself.
And Owen swings with Mutavault. Hoey's going to go ahead and take it here.
I think maybe he wants to sit on that now that Owen shows the second one. But Owen may only attack with one, so he might have played the second Mutavault before combat to get Hoey to pump the brakes on playing a Bile Blight.
Seems really greedy, but we'll see if it pays out. Owen, like you said, thinking about double activating here. Hoey did get his land lesser, and it was a temple. Owen about to activate.
Wow.
What a read. About to activate, looks at him. Nah, I think so. Thoughtseize first.
Owen is just... I'm not sure if he played the Mutavault before combat to get him to pump the brakes on the Bile Blight, but I suspect that was what was going on.
Let's just put this out. Hoey didn't play Night Veil Specter with 3 black mana up. So you have to think he's locked into Bile Blight, and Owen gets him to not cast the Bile Blight. He gets him just to do nothing.
But I want to ask him now, did you play the Mutavault before combat last turn, so if he had Bile Blight up, he wouldn't use it? I suspect, I put nothing past him, basically.
He does take the Bile Blight, crashes in, and puts Hoey down to 7. But Hoey, with the response, it's going to be Blood Baron of Vizscopa.
Yeah. This may all be for naught, ultimately. It's going to be hard for Owen to work through this, but...
If he finds a Devour Flesh right now, here's an opportunity to devour... Well, no, wait. There's an untapped land and a Mutavault. He's going to need 2 Devour Fleshes.
He needs 2 removal spells, or he needs Hoey to activate the connections.
And Owen's going to start with Desecration Demon. It'll be pretty greedy of Hoey to draw the card here, and he doesn't.
Yeah. I understand it's tough to give up the card there, but Blood Baron's worth all sorts of cards.
And now the life gain will begin. Remember, Blood Baron, Owen with very little interaction with it. He does have 2 Mutavaults. He could, in theory, try to trade them with Blood Baron, but that's a pretty risky thing to do in the first place.
Well, if Hoey doesn't find a removal spell for this Desecration Demon, he's at risk of just getting killed. Owen has removal spells in his hand. He can fend off the rest of Hoey's hand pretty effectively.
That's true. Hoey may have to fog that demon for a while as he gains life with Blood Baron. We'll see. He's going to look for more cards right now. Goes to 6 with that Underworld Connections. Draws a Duress. His Night Veil Specter, Duress, Gray Merchant, and what appears to be Bile Blight in his hand. So just needs to stay alive. To that effect, Blood Baron will start gaining him some life. It swings in. Owen drops to 13. Hoey back up to 10.
Can't block, so you might as well attack.
Land from Hoey, and now we're going to get to see what he does. It's going to be Gray Merchant to Asphodel. This drains for 5. Hoey's going to go ahead and ultimate price it with the trigger on the stack, so it only drains for 3, but they switch life totals. Hoey up to 13 now. Owen down to 10. And once again, rather than duressing, it looks like Hoey's going to protect his Blood Baron.
Yep.
Good call.
I don't think Hoey can win if he loses the Blood Baron here, so he has to give up some efficiencies.
And Owen actually does have the Devour Flesh here. I don't think he has the second kill spell to take care of Mutavault. And he had the Devour Flesh already, so had he drawn that kill spell, Owen would have gotten it. But as it is, Blood Baron's going to stick around. You see that Devour Flesh in Owen's hand. He's so close to being able to deal with Blood Baron.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many more turns he's going to get Hoey to tap down to just 1 mana. This may be the last time that he gets that chance. And he'll start by activating both Mutavaults, swinging Desecration Demon, crashing Hoey down to 3. And Owen with a 3rd Mutavault will pass back.
And, of course, another Mutavault here. Very significant for Owen.
Do you think he's going to start running chump blocks on the Blood Baron?
Probably not. I think that he's just in pure race mode. He doesn't have a long-term plan against the Blood Baron right now, with Hoey showing a commitment to leaving the Mutavault up as Devour Flash protection, so...
Now, the good news is that because Hoey is down to so few life points, Hoey has to swing the Blood Baron every turn. He can't leave it back to block.
Right.
I know, in a world where Hoey had more life points, he could just have this Blood Baron be the best blocker ever and then just start drawing cards. But Hoey priced into attacking. And we see duress from Owen, from Hoey. He'll get to read about that Devour Flesh. Owen is going to see whether he'll fire it off first. And this is close, right? Getting rid of Mutavault's pretty good. At the same time, giving Hoey 2 life points is not very good.
Yeah, because the Mutavault requires Hoey to commit mana to activating it, and Hoey is pressed on mana, so it's possible that's the tiebreaker here.
Look how close Owen was to killing the Blood Baron. He did have the second kill spell to go with his Devour Flesh, but it was a Dark Betrayal, unable to take care of Mutavault, so Devour Flesh couldn't get the Blood Baron. Hoey's going to take the Dark Betrayal, leaving Owen with just Devour Flesh. And 4 more damage from Blood Baron.
But now an incredibly risky play that Owen has access to is animating Mutavault, blocking and Devour Flushing himself, sacrificing the blocking Mutavault. But if Hoey has anything to kill the Mutavault, then Owen has to sack his own Desecration Demon, so too risky of a line.
Yeah, he would have to tap out to make that play. He would be dead to a kill spell if he went for it. Does not want to do that. He'll take the hit. Owen goes to 6, Hoey up to 7. See where Hoey goes from here. He's going to play another Mutavault of his own, and he's tapping out for another Grey Merchant. This one drains for 5. It'll put Owen down to 1. And Owen doesn't have a way to get around that. Oh, Hoey's going to go to 12, and it looks like Hoey will be able to pull away here thanks to a slew of life gain. I'm not sure if there's a top deck that gets it for Owen. We will see here.
Well, Grey Merchant means he's not dead next turn.
Yeah, we'll see whether. I imagine Hoey's going to go ahead and tap down that demon too. If he doesn't, then he does risk losing to potentially to Grey Merchant. Yeah, we'll see what play Owen can make. He's at 1. Blood Baron is going to swing for. Well, he's going to have to start getting chump blocked as soon as next turn. Hoey still with Underworld Connections. And Connections plus running Grey Merchants is kind of the recipe for winning in the mirror most of the time.
And Hoey had nothing, and then with the Connections, he's drawn, 4 or 5, whatever number of cards extra here, and that's all the difference. He was stuck with 2 Grey Merchants in his hand that were only going to buy him time. With that Connections in play, they become incredible proactive threats.
All right, Owen going to attacks. He's allowed to attack. Hoey drops to 6. And I think Owen did hit the Grey Merchant. And you do have Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Hoey down to 2, Owen up to 5. There is still life here for Owen. It is not much, but he's got a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see what Hoey can get here. If you're Hoey, it's pretty safe. I think it's just to tap down to 1 at this point. 1 and 2 are about the same. We'll see what he wants to do. He knows he has Owen at 1 if he just can push an additional damage. He's going to start getting to eat Mutavaults.
And if you're Hoey there, you're so close to finally finishing Owen off, and that's the draw step, and it's a sweat now.
All right, down to 1. Hoey's going to tap with that Underworld Connections. We'll see what he gets. Looks like a kill spell of some sort. Depends on what it is as to whether or not it is good enough. He needs to be able to take care of Mutavault. He's going to ultimate price the Grey Merchant.
And now I think these attackers are going to be too much.
Well, Owen's going to be forced to chump the Blood Baron to survive. Oh, it's 2 Mutavaults. No, Owen doesn't. Owen has no plays. As long as Hoey makes the call to send everything. And he does. It's a Devour Flesh. Owen has to devour his own Desecration Demon to survive here. So he gains 6, goes to 11, takes 10, goes to 1.
Owen has him dead on the way back.
Hoey's up to 5. Owen has him dead on the counter swing.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God! And Owen Turtenwald pulls it out there with the Devour Flesh on his own
kidding me?
demon.
Yeah, no.
Oh man!
Wow.